Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. I just wanted to say a big hello to all of my new subscribers. I am so happy that you have decided to subscribe to my channel and I hope you continue to enjoy my videos. So today I'm going to make a card that I saw on Pinterest. I tried to trace this card back to the original creator but I couldn't, so I'll put a link in the description box to the post on Pinterest that gave me the idea. I'll change it up a little bit, but not a great deal. So first of all, I'm going to make a 5 1/4 inch card. So I'm using 300 GSM white cardstock to make my card base, and I'll cut it 5 1/4 by 10 1/2. So this is A4 paper, cardstock should I say. Now I'm also going to cut another piece that's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And this is going to be the front panel of my card. I'm going to use my scoreboard and score this card 5 1/4. I always, well mostly always, make my own card bases. I prefer the squareness of them, I suppose, the size and the fact that they line up on the corners and things, which you don't always get when you purchase pre-folded cards. Okay, so there's my card base and my front panel. I'm just wondering whether I will trim that down and I'll go ahead and do my other things first. Alright, so now I'm going to use this Woodware stamp, and it's called 5 Daisies, and I'm going to I've got these transparencies, so I'm going to use some transparencies on my card. I've got these transparencies and these are 5 inches. So if I trim this front panel down to 5 inches, that would be alright, but if I don't, well then I've got this other transparency here. It's a quite thick transparency, or acetate should I say. I think these are actually transparencies from, the days of when we used to have overhead projectors, and this is quite a thick one, and as I'm going to heat emboss on it, I don't really know which way I want to go. Do I want to use this? I believe that these are thick enough. I don't know. I think I'll go with the thick one, just to be better safe than sorry. So I'm going to use my trimmer and cut this transparency down. And I'm going to cut it transparent at 5 1/4. By 5 1/4 by 5 3/4. I might even do 6. 5 1/4 by 6. Okay. I will score that, but I won't score it right now. Now, I'm going to stamp onto these 2 panels. To do that, I'm going to use my stamping platform. I'm going to stamp and then heat emboss both pieces. So I'm going to use this stamping platform. Make sure I've got it on clear because I'm using this clear stamp. And Now I'm just going to pop, so this is, as I said, my front panel. I'm going to pop that in there, line it up on there, and then stamp, position my stamp. Now there's, I want a black stamped out image, so there's a couple of ways you could do this. You can stamp with black and then heat emboss with clear, or you can stamp with clear and then heat emboss with black. So I'm going to have to tip that just a little bit to fit it onto my card front, but that's great. I don't have a problem with that. And pop that down onto that. Sticky mat wasn't all that sticky, I guess. So pop that down there. Put the magnet up there and one down here. Now I had planned on stamping with clear and heat embossing with black, but I'm going to change my mind. And I'm going to use my Versafine Onyx Jet Black Ink and my clear embossing powder. So I've got this clear embossing powder, and I'm going to go that way this time, I think. This Versafine ink is fantastic for stamping. It always gives a nice clear image. So pop that down there, stamp that, press down on it. I've got this thing here that I can use to make sure I get a nice image. I have used this stamp before and I think it stamps fairly well. There we go. Now I'm going to dip my embossing powder onto that. Oh, I forgot to use my little powder buddy. I'll definitely use that on my acetate though. So let's bring this over here and pour our clear embossing powder onto it. I've had this clear embossing powder for a long time. You can see there's all sorts of bits and pieces in it, but it still works, and I can see I've got a little bit of overflow there and a little bit of overflow there. So I'm going to tip this back into the bottle. And now I'm going to just set that aside so I don't smudge it somewhere, and then bring my acetate in and do exactly the same thing with that. Now make sure I use this because anyone that's ever stamped or heat embossed on acetate knows that it is notorious for static electricity, and your embossing powder goes everywhere. So let's get some ink back on this stamp and stamp that down onto our acetate. Is it? Looks like it's... I think I need to move that down a fraction actually. I'm going to do it like that and stamp that down on there. Okay. The idea of using the clear embossing powder instead of the black, I like that because if you get, look at that, if you get any excess powder on your acetate or your card, if it's clear, it doesn't stand out as much, so you've got more chance of hiding it, whereas if it's black, you know, it really hits you in the eye. So you can use these little Versa colour ink cubes for heat embossing as well, someone told me the other day. So if you've got some of those and you want to, say, do a pink flower instead of a black one, you can do that using your little Versamark cubes. Okay, so now add some clear embossing to this. Now, if you have a look at the inspiration for this card, the lady that created the one I saw has used pink on her embossing. So there's another idea for you. See all that there, even though I use that, it's on the back side. Okay, so tip this back into our little pot. And no matter how careful you are, it goes everywhere. Now I'm going to use my heat gun and heat these two embossed images up, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so now I have got my heat embossing heated on that, and I'm going to use my Triblend markers to colour those. Because they're daisies, I don't really need a lot of colour, so I'm just going to go with yellow. So start with the lighter. I'll start with the lighter one and just sort of come in a bit like so. I won't do all of these on camera. I'll just do one flower, one leaf, give you a bit of an idea of how I do it. I'm by no means an expert at this. This is probably the first time I've actually used these markers, so it's all trial and error. But I think being daisies is probably pretty easy. And then I'll go for the darker one just to come out from the middle slightly. So we get that bit of a variant in there. And then maybe, now I'm going to do the centres with, I've got a golden brown shades. Perhaps I'll do the orange. I've got an orange here, orange blend. So if I do the mid orange in the centre, and then use the darker brown to just shade around the bottom area like so, and then I can use a light yellow to sort of blend those into each other, just something like that. Okay, now for the leaves, I've got a couple of greens here. I've got a jade green and a light green. I might just go with the light green, I think, and once again I'll start with the light end, and with the leaves I'll actually colour the whole thing with the light. with the mid, I'll come out a bit from the centre of the leaf. So we've got the lighter tips and the darker to the centre. And then with the dark, I'll go the very in the shady areas, like in here under leaves and under flowers, in the very centres. And under there. And just pull it out from the centre. Then I'll take the light one and go back in over the whole thing to sort of smooth them out. Let them blend in a little more. So something like that will be what my flowers and leaves will look like. So I'll colour the rest of this off camera, and then when I have done that I'll come back to you. So I've coloured my card front and I've decided I want to back it with a piece of yellow. So I'm going to trim this piece down. So I'm going to make it so that it's 5 inches by 5 inches. So if I trim that off there, then I can trim this down to 5. And then the cut. I might leave all of that flower on there and cut this side off. So now we have our 5 inches square, so I'll cut this one 5 1/4. So this is just a piece of paper, it's not cardstock, but it's going to go between 2 pieces of cardstock, so it doesn't need to be extra thick. So we have our 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to use my black Versacolour ink cube to ink around the edge of this. And this. And I'll use a bit of double-sided tape to add that to that. Okay, so let's position this so that we've got equal border all the way around, about like so. Yep, and we can just pull these out. Okay, so that is the front of my card. That is going to be attached onto that. And I'm going to put a sentiment on here. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is work on the inside. Right, I'll get organised and I'll come back to you. Okay, now it's time to work on our transparency. This transparency buckled a little when I did my heat embossing. My hope is that once I finish the card I will put it under a weight and that will flatten that out. So I'm going to proceed with it and hope that it works out for the best. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this into my scoreboard and I'm going to score it at 5 1/4. Now I'm going to fold it along that score line and burn it. So we've got a nice crisp crease. Now the card that I saw, it didn't have instructions with it, and I'm just winging it here. So this is just how I think I would have made it if it was me. So we're getting my version of it here, and not necessarily the version that was on the original card. So I'm going to now put double-sided tape on here. I found that double-sided tape works quite well with transparencies or acetate. And I'm going to put that there, a solid row across. Like so. Finish that down well, so that we know that the transparency is going to attach to the cardstock nicely. Then pop this over so that as we're looking at it from the inside we can see our images up the right way. Okay, so centre that on there as best we can. And then stick it down. Now I'm doing it this way because then my card front will hide this overlap. Okay. So now what we're going to have, we're going to put a thing in there, and that will be like an easel card, and it will sit up like so. So it will sit like that. So now we can stick this on top of that, and that will hide that acetate join there. Okay. Next step is to put our little panel on here. So to do that I'm going to use a piece of this leftover card from when I cut my card base. And I probably don't really want it that wide. What am I going to put on it first? Let's have a look. stamp like a couple of these, couldn't we, and fussy cut them out and put them on there. Might do that. Okay, well that's what I'm going to do, and seeing as how you've already seen me stamp and heat emboss and colour, you don't need to watch me do that again. So I'm going to stamp these flowers, and I'm just going to fussy cut probably a couple of them to go on this strip here, and when I've done that I'll come back to you. Okay, so I took this panel off of my card because I did not like the buckling at all, and I'm going to use my StazOn Jet Black Ink to stamp onto a piece of acetate. Now StazOn ink is especially for non-porous surfaces, and it dries permanent, so I'm hoping that this will do the trick. It won't be risen, but the image will be there, so that's the main thing. So let's try this and see how we go. Apply some pressure because I want a nice solid image. Let's see how we went. There we go. It's not perfect, that's for sure. If my thing had have stayed in place, I could have re-stamped it, but I don't know that I'm going to risk it actually. The image is there. It's probably not as dark as I'd like it to be. So I'm going to go with that. Now I'm going to set this aside to dry. I don't know how long it takes to dry, but I'm not going to work on this anymore until it is dry. So I'll clean this stamp off. I'm not sure that those StazOn inks are all that good for your stamp, so I want to get that off. These Woodware stamps I find to be quite a reasonable price, and for the stamps, they're good quality stamps and they stamp lovely each time. I've never had, well, apart from this one, but yeah, I've noticed that they always work nicely. And some people don't clean their stamps, but I do like to clean mine. I'm going to wipe that over with a dry cloth. I don't know whether you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm only cleaning the stamp, so it's not all that interesting. Okay. So now I'm just going to set this aside to dry, and I'll go on with the other part of my card. Let's put this back together. Okay. Now, on the inside of the card, I can't do the front until that's dry. But on the inside, I have stamped, heat embossed and coloured and fussy cut this set of flowers, and I don't know whether you can see or not, but I'm certainly not a perfect fussy cutter. Now to help that, I'm going to use my Versacolour ink cube and just run around the edge of my image, and this takes all of those white pieces off, and it makes it look like you've done a great job of fussy cutting. Some people use a marker and run around the edge with a marker, and it does the same job, but I use this ink cube for just about everything, so I just stick with that. It also adds a little bit, using it this way, also adds a little bit of a shadow to the ends of your design. Just gives a little bit more detail. There's actually a little bit there that I would rather wasn't there. Okay, so I think I've gone all the way around. Looks like I've gone all the way around. So that is going to be the embellishment that goes in here. Now this piece here, I don't want it this wide. I only want it, I want this to hang over the edge of that. So that's about 1-2 inches. So I'm going to cut this strip down to 1.5 inches. One and a half inches. And I've already trimmed it down to the width of the card, which of course is 5 1/4. Now, do you think I should mat that on some yellow? Probably wouldn't hurt, would it? Okay, I will do that. So we got some yellow here, so what did I make that? 1.5. So I'm just going to put that, I'm making it 1 3/4, and by, do I want it that wide? Yeah, by 5 1/4. Okay, so once again I'm going to ink the edges of my paper and my cardstock. And use some double-sided tape to attach that. Sorry about my phone there, I should have turned on to silent. Got a bit carried away, a bit forgetful. I'm just going to stick those that onto that. Now I'm putting it up to the edges because it's the same length. I'm trying to get it even. Okay. Right, so now I'm going to put this on there like so, and I'm just going to use my art glitter glue to do that with. excess glue off of there. Okay, now I'm going to put that inside my card around about there. I'll drop it down to about there, I think. I'll put some double-sided tape on the back of this. And now I'm going to attach that inside here. A little bit of sticky hanging over there. Okay. Alright, so now I need to wait until this is dry. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes and it says that it takes 3 to 5 minutes to dry, so I'm going to go ahead. So once again I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did for the last one. I'm going to score this at 5 1/4. And then, oh, that's too much I think to have hanging over, is it? Oh, it doesn't really make any difference, just more secure. Now I'm going to fold that back on the crease on the score line. This transparency is so thick, it's hurting my fingers to fold it over, so I really don't understand why it buckled when I used the heat embossing on it. I did use the heat emboss, the embossing powder that I used was not the super fine one to start with, but then I did it a second time and I still couldn't get it to not buckle, and I used the super fine clear that time. So anyway, so this is going to go on here like so. So to do that, not quite as steep. Some tape on there. So I'm going to run another row of tape along the bottom of that. And perhaps a row along that edge, so the outer edge of this one. That way I can be sure that it's held securely in place with the 2 rows of tape, because as you can see it's pretty stiff. Right. Peel the backing off and peel the backing off of
this. And loop that one over that one. So just lay that on top of that like so. Line them up and fold that over. Easier said than done. There we go. Then burnish that down and that down. Right to the edges. So there we have our transparent inner and our little easel card. So I don't know how well you can see that. And that sits like that. So side view, like so. Okay. And now I'm going to attach the front to here, and that's going to cover that acetate join. So I'm going to put a row of acetate all the way around this, a row of double-sided tape all the way around, because I want to make sure that it sticks firmly. Okay, so sorry about that, and my husband interrupted me as I was in the middle of doing something. He didn't realise I was recording. Okay, so now I've got my tape around here. I'm going to add the front to the card. Make sure we've got it up the right way, and I want that to go that way, and then this lines up with this. Now probably should have left the little tabs so it would be easier to line up. That's like so, and that goes up that way. Okay, so we have that and that. That holds the card up. You've got your pattern on there. Now I have got a little sentiment here. This is, I just print these out on my computer and then just cut them up roughly and keep them until I'm ready. I have backed that onto a piece of the same yellow paper here, and I've backed that onto some cardboard, so it's going to be raised a little bit off of the front of the card. Just says happy birthday, and I'm going to add that to the front of the card just down here with a bit of liquid glue. So there we have it, a nice clean looking card and a little easel with a see-through section. So this is not exactly the same. I don't think this is even constructed the same way as the one that I saw on Pinterest, but that was my interpretation of it anyway. I am going to try making this again, and I'm going to buy some different acetate that is embossable and try it again. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm happy with that. If you wanted to, you could put a sentiment there. You could stamp your message in there, and of course you've got plenty of room in there to write your message if you want to handwrite your message. So there we go. So there's my card for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you can join me when I post my next video. Okay, bye.